Hello everyone, welcome to the Ranking My 100 Extreme Demons video. Today, I'm going to rank all 100 of my completed classic Extreme Demons. I will be ranking them based on how much I like the level itself, rather than a combination of the level and my experience with it, though it may factor in slightly. These are all my opinions and are in no way objective. Do not get mad at me because I put your favorite level of all time at 89 or something. And with that, let's begin. Starting at number 100, we have Corrosion. This wasn't a level I knew about until I played it once, and once I did, I don't think I've ever hated a level more in my entire life. The gameplay is so unbelievably boring to play, the balancing is beyond garbage, the choke points are insane, and the deco is so uncoordinated and bad for a 1.9 level. Number 99 was my previous least favorite, but this level is at least 10 times worse. At number 99 is Bloodbath. I know this level is a favorite for many people, but I cannot get behind it for any reason. The balancing makes this super frustrating to play, and there are maybe two parts that have okay gameplay. It's also the sequel to a level that I already didn't like, but it just took Cataclysm and made it so much worse. The only reason I don't hate this level now as much as I used to is just because of how bad Corrosion is. Number 98 is Infernal Abyss. Maybe it's no surprise that every level related to Cataclysm in some way sucks, but this is yet another one. Similarly to Bloodbath, the balancing makes this beyond horrible to play, but the other way around, with it being super second half heavy. It has one of the worst robots I've ever played, and those two unbearable UFO choke points that make this such a terrible level for me. The only redeeming factor in this level really is the beginning of the drop isn't the worst part ever, which is the only reason I think this is still better than Bloodbath. Next, at number 97, is Tech Manifestation. This should come as no surprise if you've ever seen this level before. I beat this on ULDM as my 69th Extreme because I thought it would be funny, but it was not funny. Similarly to most of the levels at the bottom, the balancing is embarrassing, with 2 or so random 5% intervals throughout the level being extremely difficult before just going back to normal. It still makes its way above the others because it has some decent deco in full detail and has some parts that I guess aren't completely terrible. At number 96 is Cataclysm. While this level definitely isn't as bad as something like Bloodbath due to its reduced difficulty, it's yet another display of horrible balancing and terrible choke points. I've never had much trouble with that one wave, but that stupid part at the end of the ball and then a bunch of other random hard clicks, it's just terrible. It's not completely horrible, but it's not even close to a fun level. Next, at number 95, is Digital Descent. This is the first level here that definitely feels more like a level and not some old shit fest, but let me explain. I beat this level before a few of its bug fix updates, so I'm basing my rankings off of that. This level was so annoying to play because nearly every death was a bug somewhere in the 30s or 70s or somewhere else so annoying. The balancing again is horrible, making it impossible to get anywhere because of parts like Manix and Devon. At least the deco isn't completely terrible and the level itself has aged pretty well. Next, at number 94, is 80X. This isn't bad in the way the other levels are, but it's so uninteresting and so boring that it makes its way all the way down this list. This level is insanely boring to play, and the balancing is entirely on the UFOs that you will die to every single attempt. Again, this level is another terrible song, and the deco is just super outdated. At number 93 is Roby. Similarly to 80X, this level is so boring and uninteresting that playing this feels like a chore. The balancing, again, is terrible and the gameplay is extremely boring. The level is so unenjoyable to play and has genuinely no unique qualities. Next, at number 92, is Scoop in Hell. It's hard to even call this a wave level due to the fact that the waves require no skill and all luck. If you've ever played this level, you know none of the waves get even slightly consistent, and that's coming from me, a wave-carried player. The reason this doesn't place lower is because the non-wave parts are kinda interesting and save the level from being the most boring thing ever. At 91, we have Red World, another extremely poorly balanced level with all of the difficulty being in the ship at 50 and the last swing copter. No surprise that an extremely old level has terrible balancing and bad gameplay, but it was such a filler extreme for me that it just didn't matter enough for me to place it lower. At 90 is Pouring. I will never understand why the creator decided to make the balancing bad intentionally and call it part of the experience. The first 20% is free, the next 20% is hard, the next 40% is free, and the last 20% is impossible. Generationally boring level and sucks to play for a while. It also has an impossible last click that I died to twice. The only redeeming thing about this level is the waves, which I found pretty fun. And number 89 is Plasma Pulse 3. I genuinely think I wouldn't hate this level as much if it wasn't for the fact that I had to listen to its horrible song when playing it. The balancing, again, is really bad, and the gameplay feels super disorganized. It definitely feels like an early 2.0 level, and the way that move triggers are used so poorly, it's insane. At number 88 is Deception Dive. This is the first level on this list that I beat as a new hardest, and it's definitely the worst. If you know anything about this level, it is actually sleep-inducing, as there's nearly no difficulty up until about 30%, and the decoration is super inconsistent, with some parts being pretty good today, and others being really outdated. The main issue with this level, obviously, is the balancing and the choke points, so I don't really have much else to say about it. Next, at number 87, is Penombre. Another extremely uninteresting level, but this time has a really buggy ending and a really boring everything else. The ships are really bad, and the balancing is annoying as usual. And then at number 86 is AirTech. I didn't know whether this was worse than Penombre or not, because they're very close in quality, but the decoration in this level is slightly better, so I put it above. Another very buggy mess, but not the worst thing ever, I guess. At number 85, we have Marlboro Reds. Another really uninteresting level with bad balancing. The gameplay itself isn't that bad, but there's one or two really hard clicks in each section that make it really annoying to play. At number 84 is Prismatic Haze. I just can't call this level good due to the balancing and the fact that the ending is over an entire third of the level. The level just doesn't flow very well in my opinion, and the ending makes it all the worse. At number 83 is Framework. One of those levels I really liked before I played it, but I disliked it afterwards. The song is really annoying to listen to for long periods of time, and the wave, the spider, and the duel at the end completely ruin the entire level. I don't even think anyone has found a consistent way to do the duel at the end, and it just does not work. Number 82 is The Lost Existence. This level is okay, but it's this low because it's probably the most boring extreme demon I've beaten. It's nearly 2.5 minutes of half-speed gameplay before getting to a drop that lasts less than a minute and more slow gameplay. The balancing in this level is fine, I guess, but dying far got really annoying and it definitely feels a little bit dated. Number 81 is Endless Dream. This is definitely one of my more controversial opinions. Similarly to the rest of the levels this low, I found the balancing to be really bad, and since I did this as a new hardest, that was especially important, and it made playing this level an absolute drag. It also has some really weird choke points. I like the deco in some parts and I really like the ending, but that's about it. So it just has really weird hitboxes and wasn't fun to play at all. Number 80 is Ethereal Artifice. Another one of my more controversial opinions, but I just didn't like this level. The balancing is again really poor and the level feels way too nerve-wracking to be enjoyable, at least for me. There were just random parts of the level that were way harder than others and some parts felt extremely awkward to play. At 79, we have Reverence. I thought this level would be fun before I played it as I'm a fan of flow levels, but it suffers from clear balancing and playtesting issues. This level has tons of potential to be fun, but just isn't due to several random issues that make it really annoying to play. Next, at 78, is Miseretta. This is such a nothing level. The gameplay is really boring and uninteresting for a Retta level. Some parts were kind of fun, and it got consistent before I beat it, so it's not the worst thing ever, but it has so much room for improvement. At number 77 is Obscura. This would go higher if the gameplay wasn't also really boring until 60, where the drop is kind of fun. The rest of the level, however, is a crazy boring run of parts of highly varying difficulty that make me place the level this low. At number 76 is Fallen Horizon. Once again, this level suffers from boring gameplay until it dropped really far into the level. I spent barely any time on this as I fluked it, but the pre-drop, especially the swing copter, is really boring, and even the drop is just okay. It has nice deco and atmosphere, however. At number 75 is Aftermath. Surprisingly not ranking as low as the rest of the Apocalyptic trilogy, this level has some pretty fun parts, like the first wave and most of the second half. My biggest issue was random choke points in the ball and the ship in the drop, as that was probably where 2/3 of my drop deaths were. Definitely a more fun level in comparison to Bloodbath and Cataclysm, however. At 74 is Hurricane. Certainly the worst level in the Natural Disaster trilogy, this level is like if Cycling was buffed and a random break part was added in the middle. The gameplay isn't fun at all and it's super imbalanced. This is another level that had potential to be really good, but isn't. At 73 we have Conical Depression. This is probably surprising, but I can explain why it's this high. While it is literally a layout, the gameplay is actually pretty cool and unique, and of course the level has really bad balancing and choke points, so it's not the greatest, but I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, and it's actually quite unique. And then at 72, we have Infinite Inversion. I really wanted to like this level when I beat it, but the pre-drop is really boring and the waves have random choke points that feel super out of place. The ending also starts off really hard before getting super easy, which makes the rest of it really nerve-wracking when it does not need to be. While the non-waves are pretty boring, the waves actually have some cool deco and some pretty decent gameplay, so I'm not the biggest hater of this level. At 71 is Down Base, another 9 circles level, but this one feels more fair and feels more balanced. While the beginning of the wave is certainly a difficulty spike, most of the waves retain the same balancing, and the pre-drop and ending are pretty easy, making this level just a wave skill check that's actually quite enjoyable. Still this low though, as the waves do nothing special, and it's just a classic 9 circles level. At number 70 is the Ultimate Phase. This level's pretty hated on, but aside from 2 or so parts, this was actually a pretty fun level. The deco in some parts has actually aged pretty well for a 1.9 level, but I just can't rank it higher due to that one spam part in the middle and the UFO near the beginning of the drop, as they were terrible to play and almost never worked. Number 69 is Atomic Cannon. Definitely my least favorite list demon that was on the list when I beat it, that I've played. The balancing is horrible, with the pre-drop and the last ball carrying it, and the random difficulty spikes in the drop cube fucking up the level greatly. The deco is pretty cool in some parts, and the gameplay is pretty satisfying to pull off. At 68, we have Faded Dream. This level fixes a good amount of the things Endless Dream had wrong, but there are still several issues with it, mainly poor balancing, and a duel that works way less than the one in Endless Dream. This level's okay, but it's definitely not up there. At number 67 is Forbidden Isle. This is another skill-based level with another boring pre-drop, but the drop gameplay is actually quite fun. Definitely not the most interesting level, but I like the idea behind it. And at 66 is Azurite, which is just Forbidden Isle with more glow, a less boring pre-drop, and more interesting drop gameplay. It's about the same quality and difficulty as Forbidden Isle as well. At 65 is Carcano. I'm a huge fan of Cognition style levels, but the only one who can really pull off the style well is Benji. This level lacks most of the good qualities of those levels, but the balancing isn't terrible and some parts are quite fun. At 64 is Vociferous. The level doesn't have the greatest balancing, but it definitely has some fun gameplay and cool decoration from the greatest creator of all time. My only real issue is that the level has 2 slow parts which are kinda boring, but the rest is pretty fun. At 63 is Concave Memories. This level would have placed higher if the second half of the pre-drop worked more than 30% of the time. I love the drop gameplay in this level, especially in the second drop, but the pre-drop is super RNG and the ending is really long and boring. At 62, we have Hot Rod, another Cognition style level, but it definitely puts a unique twist on it. The gameplay is probably slightly worse than Carcano, but it makes up for it with its deco. This level manages to make a Cognition modern level, which actually works pretty well in my opinion. It definitely suffers from some weird balancing issues, but they aren't level ruining. At number 61 is the Ultimate Demon. I really like the idea behind this level of rebuilding parts of other extremes in Vit's own style. The level itself plays pretty well, but the pre-drop is by far the hardest part, especially the first 8%. My worst fail was 57, and I didn't even consider that a fluke. At number 60 is Twilight. This is the current hardest level I've beaten as a non-new hardest, and it is certainly an interesting level. I really like Midnight, which is the sequel to Twilight, but this level really doesn't live up to Midnight. I like the gameplay in all the parts except for the really annoying pre-drop, and all the ships are way harder than everything else. But I really like the atmosphere of the level, and the gameplay in some parts is really good. At number 59, we have Eco. While it is inspired by Aku, it is not even close to as good. This level feels way too long to be a faithful remake, but it's not all bad. The drop parts are pretty fun, albeit harder than everything else, and the decoration is pretty unique while still managing to feel kind of like Aku. Number 58 is Falling Up. The level is very good on its own, but it is certainly knocked down by how boring the pre-drop is and how messed up the last duel is. Overall, a pretty cool level with interesting effects and decoration, but most of the gameplay is just straight fly on the drop. At 57, we have Cyclone. This level, while definitely better than Hurricane, is still kind of weird. The gameplay is definitely more fun, but the balancing issues still remain. Most of the level is fun enough for me to gloss over those issues, but there was one part that I really disliked, which is the end of the pre-drop. The drop was fun and I don't really have much else to say about it. At 56, we have Clarity. This level has really interesting gameplay and deco that syncs very well with the song. I think the gameplay is really interesting, but some of it just isn't for me. The duel at the end is really cool, but like the rest of the level, it never really got consistent. This level isn't terribly unbalanced, but the pre-drop is definitely harder than the rest. At 55, we have Glisten. This level is pretty fun and I like how it's mostly click pattern based, which makes it really easy to learn and beat quickly. Not the most interesting level, however, but it makes for a really nice experience. At 54 is Rust. Definitely a favorite for some people, but I just can't understand it. This level has some of the worst balancing I've ever seen, but it makes up for it with the gameplay, which is some of the most unique I've ever seen. The deco is also pretty cool, but that's all I have to say about it. I wish the pre-drop and the ending weren't so egregiously difficult compared to everything else. Number 53 is 9 Blue, another glow flow level with interesting balancing. The first third is by far the hardest part, the second third is the most fun and interesting part, and the last third is the most boring part due to how slow it is. I really like some parts and I really don't like others, so this level is just okay in my opinion. At 52, we have Untitled. I actually quite like this level, though the pre-drop is really long and can feel really random at times. The drop is extremely fun, but since the pre-drop is half the level and doesn't get consistent at all, I can't put it any higher. At 51, we have Gravity, the fake sequel to Moment, which is another extreme of being. The level certainly isn't as good as Moment, and the issue is how the level is composed. It again has an ending that spans nearly half the level, which I really don't like. The rest of the level is pretty fun though, with the drop being the hardest part. Before I get to the top 50, I want to quickly rank all of the platformer extremes I've beaten, which I have not included in my total extreme demon counter. On screen now, you can see a complete list. Now on to my top 50 favorite extreme demons that I've beaten. At number 50, we have Belengu Vortex. Definitely one of the better 9 Circles extremes that I've beaten. Belengu has really interesting gameplay and a pre-drop and ending that aren't terribly difficult. Again, my main issue is the balancing, with the second wave being the hardest part right after the first wave, which is the second hardest part. I also don't like the ending, but that's probably just a skill issue. Number 49 is Allegiance. This level honestly has some pretty fun gameplay and interesting deco for the time it came out, but the random difficulty spikes throughout the level certainly bring it down. I also wish the pre-drop was slightly shorter, as it lasts just short of half the level. It's not a bad level, just not great. At number 48, we have Niwa. This level is really fun, but it has some insane balancing issues, with some parts being Bloodbath difficulty and others being Hard Demon difficulty. The level itself is also kinda laggy, but that wasn't too much of a problem for me. It's really satisfying to pull off, and the gameplay itself is pretty good. Number 47 is Hypersonic. I used to be a huge fan of it, but I just don't care for it as much anymore. I think it's definitely one of the best early 2.1 collabs, but some parts vary a lot in both difficulty and quality. The level's pretty fun overall, but some parts like the duel at the beginning and the drop duel were really awkward and got pretty annoying after a while. At number 46 is Disruption. This level has really fun gameplay, but it's not the most consistent, and the drop has a lot of choke points. The pre-drop is also pretty boring, but it's not too long. I think this level pulls off what it tries to do very well, and it gets extremely fun to play when you get good at the really hard clicks. Number 45 is Arctic Lights. This may be a surprise as I know how hated this level is, but this level's special to me. I went for this several times over the past few years until beating it about 6 months ago, and I never really hated this level. I found the wave gameplay to be quite fun as well. Obviously the pre-drop is hard and boring and the level is pretty unbalanced, but once I got good enough to actually beat the level, I didn't really find any part to be outstandingly difficult. Overall, I genuinely like this level and I think it's definitely overhated. Number 44 is Castling, another pretty widely disliked level that I actually found quite fun. Only this low because of the insane balancing, with 85 to 100 being over a third of the difficulty of the level, as well as random other difficulty spikes like the end of the pre-drop. I actually quite like the deco and gameplay, and I think the level's aged pretty well, but once again, the balancing is so unbelievably bad that I just can't put this any higher. At number 43, we have The Golden, my current hardest. I don't have as much to say about this one as I thought I would. Most of the level's gameplay just isn't that fun to play for long periods of time, but learning it and getting runs is really satisfying. I like the decoration too, it's pretty unique, I guess, and the ships are way harder than everything else in the level, which makes it quite annoying to play, unfortunately. At 42 is Fun Friday, one of the 2 unrated extremes on this list. This level's extremely unique and is pretty fun to play, but the balancing is a whole other story. The level feels front and back heavy, with the beginning and the ending carrying most of the difficulty. It feels like the difficulty decreases from the beginning until the halfway mark where it starts increasing again. The second drop is also kind of weird, but besides that, the gameplay is really fun and it has nice deco. Number 41 is Anya 3. This level has some really awesome deco and full detail anyways, which I didn't realize until I beat it on LDM, but the gameplay is kind of lacking. The first drop was not at all fun to play and it brought down the level a ton. The pre-drop also got kind of boring, but the second half really saves it. The second half was super fun to play and it got really consistent. Number 40 is Oxy. This level is really cool, but some parts really show that this is an early 2.2 level. The level's super fun when you get it down, but some parts, like the last 30%, don't get consistent or even work most of the time, and the first drop has a major difficulty spike. Don't get me wrong, this level is really fun and it looks really cool, but it definitely has some major flaws. At 39 is Broken Signal. This level has an incredibly cool theme with deco that works really well. Unfortunately, the gameplay doesn't live up to that quality. While some parts are certainly decent, others have really weird and broken gameplay that make this pretty frustrating to play. At number 38, we have Corrupted Volume. This level has really good gameplay, but the balancing is really weird and the song is kind of annoying. Each part is really unique, but each part still feels like it's missing something. Regardless, this level is very enjoyable, but it does have some balancing issues and choke points that bring it down a bit. 37 is Moment. This level also has really awesome gameplay and I like the deco, but oh my god are the waves so much harder than everything else. The wave at 26 gave me such an insane amount of trouble when playing this, it was crazy. I love the progression and how even though the level only has about 50 seconds of gameplay, the ending gets extremely nerve-wracking. Again though, the balancing lacks with really bad choke points everywhere. At number 36, we have Sonic Wave, my 100th Extreme Demon. Definitely a controversial opinion, as this level is very hated. I actually enjoyed playing this level and found the wave gameplay to be really fun. My biggest issue was how the pre-drop was extremely difficult, specifically the ball, making it really hard to get anywhere, which got really frustrating. Obviously, it's just a classic 9 circles level, so the deco is nothing special, but the level is still pretty good in my opinion. At number 35, we have Maths. This level is extremely fun, and the gameplay works really well. The bouncing is a bit weird, and the beginning of the drop is way harder than everything else, but it's not crazy bad. The gameplay is consistently fun and enjoyable throughout the level, but it's pretty short and underwhelming to play and beat. Number 34 is Lost Love. I really like memory levels, and this one is no exception. The biggest issue with this level for me is the whole thing looks basically the same, and there are only 3 unique parts on this level: a robot, a ball, and a cube. The level's pretty fun, but due to how easy the beginning is, it can become kind of boring. At number 33 is Troll Level. Similarly to Lost Love, it's another memory level that I really like. This one definitely has some more enjoyable gameplay than Lost Love, but some parts are a bit more jank. The pre-drop, while really consistent, gets slightly boring as you have to sit through it every attempt to get to the drop. There's also a few weird choke points, but not enough to ruin the level. 32 is Crowd Control. While this is the second highest enjoyment I've given a level, the level itself isn't as good. The gameplay is fun and consistent, but it's not very unique, nor is the decoration very special. This was probably meant to just be another filler extreme, but since I enjoyed it so much, I can confidently say it is an actually good level. At 31 is Crimson Planet, another level that some people really don't like, but I found to be really cool. While it may just seem like another hell level, the gameplay is actually quite unique, and the gameplay gets very consistent. Definitely not the prettiest level ever, but I do think the gameplay at its core is fun. It does have 3 parts that are definitely harder than the rest, but the level wouldn't feel the same if those parts didn't have those difficulties. At 30, we have Cave of Heart. Yeah, another memory level that is very fun and has great deco. I won't deny the balancing is really bad, but I fluked it from 37, so I'm not too bothered by that. The deco is really cool, and while it's the only extreme I've beaten with mirror gameplay, it wasn't overused, nor was it too annoying. The gameplay is really interesting, and the level's pretty fun overall. 29 is U235. This level has some of the most fun raw drop gameplay I've ever played. The pre-drop definitely brings the level down as it gets pretty annoying, but the rest of the level is super fun. The deco is pretty cool too, but nothing insanely special. This level makes its way this high due to how enjoyable it is. At 28 is Sync. This level is really well made for a 1.9 GDPS level, and the gameplay is fun to learn and play. While this level has super bad balancing, with the first third being over half the difficulty, all parts are still fun. I unfortunately had a bad experience with it due to terrible luck, but I still really like the level even after all that. 27 is Agile, the second of the 2 unrated extremes on this list. This level has some of my favorite effects in any level I've played, and the drop is super fun. Unfortunately, the balancing isn't great, with the second part of the pre-drop being extremely difficult in comparison to everything else. But the fact that this hasn't earned itself at least an epic feature yet is insane to me. At number 26, we have Reflective. I'm definitely a huge fan of both this level's decoration and gameplay. Most parts are really fun, but I can't put it any higher due to how long and difficult the pre-drop is. I really like most parts of the level, however, and it's definitely one of the better extremes I've beaten. Before starting the top 25, I want to say thank you to anyone still watching. Whether you're skipping around to find your favorite levels, or you've watched the whole video so far, it means a lot, as it took a long time to write something about every extreme demon I've beaten. Now, onto my top 25 favorite extreme demons that I've beaten. Next, at 25, is Virtue. This level has really cool gameplay and deco, and I really like how the level slowly progresses from this heaven-themed level to this dark and glitchy level. The pre-drop has some really weird inputs, but I still love this level as it all ties together really nicely. Number 24 is Redemption Arc. I really enjoyed watching the creation process of this level, so as soon as it came out, I went to beat it, and I wasn't disappointed. The level, while some parts are certainly harder than others, has some really cool effects and gameplay that syncs extremely well with the music. I really love the deco in this level, and it goes incredibly well with the gameplay. At number 23 is Accu, my first extreme demon. I've beaten this level several times due to how fun it is, and even though it certainly shouldn't be an extreme demon due to its difficulty, I'm glad to have beaten this one as my first. All parts are extremely fun, though the balancing heavily favors the pre-drop and the ending. The deco remains consistently great throughout the level as well, though it doesn't vary too much. Overall, a really fun level. 22 is Antoninth. This level's pretty learny, but it definitely feels worth it once you learn it all. It's really fun to pull off certain parts, and the deco is quite nice too. The song does get a bit annoying to listen to after a while, but it's not the worst thing ever. I do wish the choke points in this level were also toned down a bit because they are bad. At 21, we have Heartbeat. This is probably my favorite Chromo level, and for a good reason. I really like how the gameplay 100% fits the theme and song of the level. Every part feels like it was made to fit a level themed around heartbeats. Not only that, but the level is very fun and the balancing is really good. It's only this low because the level itself definitely feels a bit dated. At number 20 is Explicit. This level, while really short, has really good progression and is very fun. Again, it is made by Ren241, so obviously the deco and gameplay are great. The waves, however, are incredibly hard compared to everything else, so while the level is really fun and gets pretty consistent, you die to a wave almost every attempt. Still an incredible level though. At 19, we have Niflheim. I've never played Niflheim before playing this, so I didn't know what to expect, but I was surprised. The gameplay in this level is satisfying to learn and fun to pull off. Unfortunately, the pre-drop is extremely long and almost all of the difficulty of the level, so this doesn't place any higher. Number 18 is Tornado. This level has some incredible deco for what should just be a glow slop learning level, and is incredibly fun for that same criteria. The balancing is mostly fine as well, which is surprising considering most levels like this don't have good balancing. Way better than both Hurricane and Cyclone, making it one of the most fun learning easy extremes I've been. At 17 is Myocardia. I absolutely love this level thematically, and the decoration is really well made. The balancing favors the pre-drop and the second drop a bit, but I luckily fluked nearly the entire second drop. The gameplay is really fun, but in some parts it's a bit weird. Overall, a really good level with really fun gameplay and really cool effects. At 16, we have Blade of Justice. This level is an absolute classic and is super awesome. The decoration is aged super well for this being a 2.0 level, and the gameplay is extremely enjoyable. The main issue with this level is the weird balancing, with the first third definitely carrying a good bit of the difficulty. The duel and the drop isn't difficult, but some inputs definitely feel a bit weird. This level is extremely solid regardless, and feels like the good counterpart to Bloodbath in a way. Number 15 is Absurdia. Some people say this level is like having keys jingled in your face, and to that I say please keep them jingling. I love this level visually, and the gameplay, while incredibly learny, can be really fun. Of course the first drop is really luck based, but the rest of the level is super fun to pull off. The pre-drop is also a bit long, but it's still an interesting enough part to not get too boring quickly. At 14 is Essentia, yet another really learny level but without the extreme visual effects, and quite the opposite even. This level manages to make a near layout look really cool and has some incredibly fun gameplay. This level is 3.5 minutes long, and when you think of that you probably think of boring gameplay. This level however has really fun gameplay throughout the whole thing. The balancing is pretty good as well, and overall this level is one of the most fun extreme demons I've played. 13 is Chroma 2. As I've been saying, Ren is an incredible creator, and he certainly didn't miss with this one. The decoration is incredible throughout the entire level, and since the level is super skill based, it feels very fair. The balancing is a bit annoying with the pre-drop and the first wave being super hard compared to everything else, but the gameplay and deco together are really solid and it is a super cool level overall. At 12, we have Duplication. This level is very similar to Tornado in a way, but the gameplay is definitely more fun and more interesting. Visually, this is one of my favorite extreme games I've beaten, and the level itself gets super consistent. It is such an incredible easy extreme that everyone should beat at some point. 11 is Schmarleyville. This level has insanely fun gameplay with some insanely cool effects. This level is nearly flawless, but of course the balancing is an issue once again. The pre-drop and the first part of the drop are way harder than everything else, but the gameplay in this level is so much fun and incredibly satisfying to pull off. Starting off the top 10, we have Citra. I absolutely love this level's gameplay and decoration, and they work together to make this chaotic mess that clocks in at only 39 seconds. This level feels insane to get runs on with its extremely condensed difficulty. Most people say the level's second half heavy, but I never found the second half to be that bad, so the balancing is pretty good. The waves are certainly the hardest parts of the level, but passing them feels fucking insane. Citra is such a cool level, and while unfortunately I did not enjoy it, it is one of my favorite extremes that I've beaten. At number 9, we have One Attempt. I played this after beating One Shot, the game it's based off of, which I loved playing. This level is so faithful to the original game that it even has a secret coin based on one of the puzzles in the game. Not only does it represent One Shot super well, it is also an incredibly well-made level with extremely cool gameplay. Every single part is extremely unique and does an incredible job representing the original game. While I once again didn't enjoy this level that much, I still respect its existence and think it's an incredible level and a great representation of One Shot. Next, at number 8 is Rivers of Nazareth. Similarly to Redemption Arc, I followed the creation process and could not wait to beat this when it came out. This level has some of my favorite deco and effects in any level in the game, and the gameplay flows so incredibly well. The only two issues I have with this level is that the 2.2 upside down ship physics are used at the end, and that the player's in the center of the screen at all times. But the last one isn't even that bad because it makes some of the effects in this level 10 times cooler. Absolutely one of the best easy extremes in the game with some unbelievably cool effects and great gameplay. At number 7, we have The Depths Above. Similarly to One Attempt, I went for this after beating Outer Wilds, the game it's based off of, and was such a faithful remake, maybe even more so than One Attempt. The decoration is incredible, and some parts feel like they are literally copied from the game, but this level is so much more than the game it's based off of. While the balancing is a bit whack, the gameplay is incredibly fun, and there's even a mini-game right before the drop where you start the spaceship scene in the original game. It's such a unique part. Every part of this level on their own is incredible, but all of them together makes for such an insane experience. Next, at number 6, is Cooley Mazy Paloozy. This is probably my favorite memory level in the game, and I will never forget how fun it was to learn and beat. This level is extremely daunting to learn, but no other level has felt as satisfying to pull off. This level gets so insanely consistent, and is just such a good level overall. Every part manages to feel almost the same, while still having an entirely different look and concept. For a memory level like this, it works surprisingly often, and it still has my third highest enjoyment on any Extreme Demon I've beaten. Starting my top 5, we have Artificial Ascent. This level has aged so well and has some insanely cool parts even to today's standards. This level is such a classic that is still really fun today. This used to be my favorite Extreme before being dethroned by the current number 1, and the only reason it's as low as it is now is because new levels have come out that I've liked more. After beating the level, I realized its biggest flaw was the part from the beginning of Zobrist to the end of Anthrax. This part is a huge jump in difficulty, but regardless, this level is still one of my favorites, as most parts are still really fun to play, and the deco has aged incredibly well. At number 4, we have Storming Summit. Definitely my favorite of the 3 video game adaptation levels in my top 10, using my favorite game out of the 3. While this level may not be as faithful to Celeste as the other 2 are to their respective games, this level makes up for it with how cool it is. The decoration and progression of this level is incredible and matches the game perfectly, and each part is incredibly unique. It has one of the coolest duels I've ever played near the end of the level, and getting there feels so nerve-wracking, but not in a bad way. Easily one of my favorite mega collabs of all time and one of the most fun levels I've ever played. At number 3, we have Cupid. This is the most fun Extreme Demon I've beaten, and it still retains my highest enjoyment rating with a perfect 100 to this day. Never once playing this level did I get even a bit mad, as every single death is the player's fault. Every single part of this level is so much fun, and the gameplay functions incredibly well. The deco complements the song extremely well, with the gameplay flowing to it too. This level is almost like Accu, but every single issue is fixed, and the level is made 10 times more fun. This is absolutely my favorite Easy Extreme in the entire game, and if you have the skill, I would implore anyone watching this to beat it. At number 2, we have Orwa. This was my first List Demon I beat, and I fell in love with it from the moment I first saw it. This level, while seemingly looking like more glow flow slop, is so incredibly fun, and has some of the most unique gameplay I've ever seen, made by the one and only Demetrio. This level feels incredibly fair, and getting to the drop from 0 on this level is such an insane experience that I've yet to feel from any level since. Every single piece of gameplay in this level feels great to pull off in a way no other level's gameplay does. I've always recommended this level to anyone good enough to beat it, because I truly believe that this is one of the best Extremes in the entire game. And if you know absolutely anything about me, what comes next shouldn't surprise you. At the number 1 spot, not only my favorite Extreme Demon that I've beaten, but my favorite level in the entire game is Oblivion by Benji and Norm. I absolutely adore this level. It has some of the most fun gameplay I've ever played, with some of the greatest progression I've ever seen, with deco that matches it perfectly. People say that this is a bad sequel to Cognition. I see this level as nothing more than a perfect upgrade. This level is riddled with choke points and strange balancing, but for some reason it doesn't bother me, but rather adds to the charm of the level. I absolutely think this level has some of the best gameplay in the entire game, while managing to provide the player with one of the most surreal experiences ever. This level is so incredible, and before I'd gotten good enough to beat it, I'd wanted to beat it for years. I had put in so much effort and even jumped from Crimson Planet to beat this, just because of how much I loved this level. No level in the entire game, not even Orwa, has appealed to me even as close to Oblivion has. Just like Corrosion is miles worse than Bloodbath in my opinion, Oblivion is far above every level, and so it cements its spot, likely permanently, as my favorite Extreme Demon that I've beaten and my favorite level in the entire game. If you're here now, you've made it to the end. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I've always wanted to make a ranking video like this, but have never found the time nor reason to do so. I hope my opinions aren't completely terrible, and I hope you enjoyed watching.